Malie, malie kaua, makai heua, mauka heua, kiola kaua I kolua vai. Malie, malie kaua, makai heua, mauka heua, kiola kaua I kolua vai. Malie kaua, makai heua, mauka heua, kiola kaua I kolua vai. Welcome to Kaka akoween. That's salt in Kakako. My name is Lopaka Kapanui, and I'm a master storyteller. And tonight, I've been called here to tell you some ghost stories. And so if it's okay with all of you watching virtually and live, we'll begin. The first thing I want everybody to know is that after this is over, nothing will follow you home. Nothing will attach itself to you, appear as a shadow in the backseat of your car, choke you while you're sleeping, or call out your name in a disembodied voice. Whatever people tell me that they have come to my experience and felt something was with them, I tell them being in this place has heightened your sensitivity. And so there's nothing really attached to you. It's actually been with you the whole time. You're the one who bought it here. Before I begin, I want to let you know that ghosts cannot harm you, because a ghost is residual. It doesn't even know it's a ghost. It's like watching a recording. A spirit is what you have to worry about, because the spirit is aware that it's passed away, and it's also aware of us. And if a spirit finds out that somebody here tonight can actually see it, it will begin to communicate to you, and then things will happen. In ancient times, this place, Kaka, was a fishing village and well known for its salt ponds. And in our culture, just like in Asian cultures, salt is very important. Hawaiians use salt for food, for curing meat, but also we use salt for blessings. And so growing up during the end of the plantation era, I, as a Hawaiian, was surprised to find out that Asians use salt as well. I was more surprised to find out that just like my family, growing up, Asian families were also using salt for blessings or to ward off evil spirits. And so when I heard about this salt and kaka'ako event, I knew I had to come. I want you to be careful, because people always ask me, can I go to the store and buy the rock salt and will that protect me? I said, you can't really tell sometimes if it's rock salt or if it's Ajinomoto. The best salt is the one from Kauai, from the salt beds, or from Molokai. That's probably the best one. And my mom always told me, when you're going to a place where you know there are spirits, take a pinch of salt, put it under your tongue, and the spirits will not bother you. There is an office right behind this building that was there all the way up to 2009. And my friend worked in that office for her father. And she said that office was so haunted that there were so many spirits in that office. Because at some point when they had it blessed, the person who came to bless the office told my friend's father, this building is sitting on a set of remains, of bones, old Hawaiian people buried in this spot. And my friend's father, who ran the office, said, well, what are we supposed to do? And the person who came to bless the office said, the best thing you can do is move out of this office. My friend told me a lot of times when she would bring coffee for everybody and serve it to them, make sure everybody got one, and they were sitting down working on their computers, She said a lot of times she would look across the person sitting at that desk, and the person is typing on the computer, and she would start to see the cover on the coffee slowly come off. And then the cup would push itself across the desk, almost falling over the edge. In the middle of the day, when they were working on their computers, my friend told me they would also hear this, Joelle. That was my friend's name. She would always hear someone walk up to her right into her ear and say her name, Joelle. And there was no one there. It's an old Hawaiian belief that if you hear a voice call your name, you never answer to that voice. Because once you answer to the voice, it will keep talking to you. It will never stop. My friend said the bad thing about that office is her father was mad all the time, always yelling at people, always pressuring out, always angry. And it was hard to be around him because he was mad all the time. And she told me, that's not really my father. That's my stepfather, my mom's second husband, but he's the one who raised me. But he was such an angry person, all the time just mad. Hurry up! Too slow! Be quiet! Like that. And she always told him, Dad, you gotta stop. One day you're gonna have a heart attack. He said, no, I'm fine. One day when he walks into work and sees that the garbage can is full and nobody emptied it, garbage can! Full! How come? He dropped dead. Heart attack. Right there. She told me after that, after he was long gone, every time somebody forgot to empty a garbage can in the office, they would actually hear his voice from the back of the office in the storage room. Garbage can! Everybody would jump. What she didn't realize is that somebody in the office was so mad at her father who passed away. That person actually put a curse on her father. And she says, I remember about a month before my father died of a heart attack right inside the office, I would see in the back of his head, his hair all tangled. Big knot in the hair. And every time I would say, Dad, come, and I would try to brush it out, comb the knot out, it wouldn't come out. And she said the knot in the hair got bigger and bigger. And she said a lot of times I would see my dad doing this. And she noticed right in the back of his neck, looked like somebody was scratching like this. The dad always had these horrible nightmares that he couldn't remember. And so one day, when the kahuna was supposed to come and help the father, that's the day he died. Dropped dead in the office. This same friend who worked in this building, right behind here, told me when she graduated from high school at the Blaisdell Arena, flower lay, this high. And she told her mother, your cousin who works in that office, I don't like her. Do not let her come to my graduation. But my friend told me she had so many flower lays like this she couldn't see. And she didn't know that her mother's cousin, who she hated, actually came really quick and put a cigar lay around her neck like this and then ran away. My friend told me that night she goes to Waikiki dancing at the club. And of all the nice, beautiful, fragrant lays she has, she ends up wearing the purple cigar lay. And this is an old club in Waikiki called the Point After. And when she's dancing, she keeps going like this. The next morning, she has to go get ear surgery. The surgery is successful, and the doctor tells her, okay, you can take a shower, but put on the shower cap. Don't get your hair wet. And that's what my friend did. She took a shower, put on the shower cap, and then she's lying in bed, and the doctor comes in and says, oh, what did you do? My friend said, what? Why did you wet your hair? You just had ear surgery. Why you make your hair all wet? She goes, it's not wet. I wore the shower cap. He said, no, it's not. And he grabbed the hair like this and squeezed it, and all the water came out. She said she went into the bathroom at the hospital and started combing out her hair, and the comb got stuck. And she took it out, took the mirror like this, and looked, not in the hair. She couldn't cut it off. It wouldn't come out. She couldn't use solution, conditioner, oil. It wouldn't come out. And she said it went like that for almost a month. And she would always feel fingers scratching the back of her neck, like this. She said the knot got so big, it took on the shape of a box. If you ever go to Walmart and you look at the lauhala boxes, you know, the woven pattern like this, that was in her hair. So finally the kahuna came to her house and told her, get me a frying pan. Got him the frying pan, and then he said, did anybody give you something? Like some sort of gift, food or something like that? She said, I don't know. Well, more specifically, did anybody you don't like give you something? Like what? I don't know. And then the kahuna looks over at the table and says, what are all those leis for? Those were the flower leis for the graduation. They're old, they're getting brown. And she says, oh, that's for my graduation. He said, but that purple cigar lei, what is that one? That one looks new and fresh, and you graduated high school a month ago. How come it's not all brown and beat up? And my friend said, oh, I don't know. And then she asked her mom, Ma, who gave me that purple cigar lei? And the mother said, oh, I didn't want to say anything because I know how much you hate my cousin. But she's the one who gave it to you at the graduation. And you couldn't see because you had so much pile of lei, you couldn't see who it was. I thought it was okay. And the kahuna said, give me that lei. The lei is put in the frying pan, lighter fluid. When he lights the lei on fire, poof! My friend said the lei took 1 hour to burn, and it took on the consistency of molasses, all sticky and gooey. And she said, after that, I don't remember anything, because she was on the ground, flopping around, the eyes rolling over white, foaming at the mouth. She said her throat, from what she understood, just started to come out like this. And then when it was completely burned, she was fine. The kahuna told her, now, when you go back to work, you go up to that person and you tell her that you know it was her that put the curse on you. And what else? And then give her something to eat. Something that you made. And so what did she give her? Spam musubi. But did she put something inside the spam musubi? I will say this. That woman who gave her the curse lei had food poisoning for almost 2 weeks after that. Building over here behind this one. The office is no longer there, and I think now it's a dance studio. But even the new tenants at this building where the office used to be, they tell me every now and again when they forget to take out the trash or the trash can is too full, garbage can! In 1853, 1854, it's a smallpox epidemic. Thousands and thousands of people are killed by this smallpox. There's so many people that are wiped out from smallpox, there's not enough room for them in any of the cemeteries in downtown Honolulu. And so there ends up being a lot of improvised burials. And what that means is we can't find any graveyard for these people. We'll bury them right here. And the reason why the spirits of the bones are so upset is because it's different types of people being thrown into one space. So if I don't know you and you don't know me and we don't know each other and we get thrown into one space, guarantee some sort of anger. And so the spirits are upset about the same thing. Strangers buried with them in the same location. And some of those burials are all around this area. Mother Waldron Park. There's one in the corner. Behind the fire station, there's a smallpox burial a mound. If you go to the corner of Queen Street and Punch Bowl, you'll see the other mound right in the corner, found at the intersection. I cannot say which building it is in Kaka. It's over there. I can't tell you the name of it, but it's over there. A Hawaiian family was lucky. They got the bid, they got to own their own space in this building over here, somewhere over there. And they said, can you please come over and talk to our son? He's talking about having nightmares every night, but he never tells us what it is. He said, my son works at the furniture store on Ward. He's a good boy. He goes to his club after, always comes home, no trouble. But every morning when he comes to the table at breakfast, he looks all tired and there's circles under his eyes. He's not himself. Can you please talk to him? And so I went to the place, I talked to the boy, and I says, your mom and dad are concerned about something that's happening. They say you don't seem like yourself. Is anything wrong? He says, well, I have these horrible nightmares. And I asked, what are the nightmares about? He said, it's all these people. They're very angry at me. All kinds of different people, even kids, they're all mad. And they're all inside my room. That's my nightmare. And they're crowding around my bed. And they're looking at me like this. And they're not saying anything, but they're very, very upset. And my parents get upset too, because after my nightmare, when I go downstairs to the kitchen, sit down for breakfast, and at that point, the boy took off his shirt and showed me that he had all these pussy sores all over his body. My parents get upset because I'm like this now, and I don't know what's causing it. I'm not sick. I don't think I have a disease, but I don't know what these are. And my only question to him was, when these people visit you in your dream and they're all crowded inside your room, do you know who they are? And he says, oh yes, I do. I said, who are they? He said, they told me that they're the people buried underneath this building. Smallpox remains underneath that building. Men, women, and children. So what are some of the not so spooky parts about this area? Kawaihaʻo Church is where they claim there's the spring, the fountain, and you see it there. The actual Kawaihaʻo spring is underneath the old Honolulu Advertiser building. That's where it's at. The oldest church in downtown Honolulu, Kawaihaʻo Church, made with coral slabs. They actually had to carve the coral slabs out of the reef, put it on canoes, and sail it out this way to build Kawaihaʻo Church. A barn builder built it. So if you go inside, it looks like a barn. Where the post office is now used to be the old opera house. And Princess Kaiulani loved going to those operas. And of course, Iolani Palace. Special places all within this area. But what I bet you don't know is there are 3 night marcher processions that come through this area. One comes down Nu'uanu, the other comes down Bishop, the other comes down Alakea. And I'm not saying that they come specifically on the street of Bishop, Alakea, Nu'uanu. They just go right through there. And the night marchers are going through those buildings that are sitting on those streets. And so I get calls from buildings in downtown Honolulu all the time. Please come bless our office. Night marchers are coming right through. Please come bless my hot dog stand. I leave it here overnight. I get there in the morning. It's thrown all over the place. It's broken into, which is impossible because I have this huge padlock on my cart. What's good about this is a lot of people don't believe night marchers are real. And I think that's funny because I always tell them, if you want to experience a night marchers procession, go hike just a little bit into Moanalua Valley on the night of no moon, or go sit in the emergency room of Kaiser Hospital, or go to the 99-cent ranch market and just hang out. And if you can get yourself into the cafeteria at Moanalua High School on the night of no moon, You are guaranteed to have an experience. And what do night marchers do? They march from mountain to ocean. The path is the past, so whatever is in the way, they will move it out of the way. And if you see them coming, by tradition, you have to strip naked, lie face down, hands behind the back of your head, and you cannot look. And to be fair, because we have little ones here, I should at least tell a child's ghost story. When I was teaching over here at Kauai School at the Punanaleo, these are preschoolers. And the preschool is right in the middle of the graveyard, the cemetery. And so a lot of times the little kids would tell me, what happened to that other boy? We're only limited to 20 kids, but they would always see 3, 4, 5 extra kids that we would never see. And one day when they were having circle time, I was sitting on the carpet like this, and I looked this way, and I saw 3 kids run into the bathroom and slam the door shut. It's a sliding door. Boom! And I hear the lock click. And I walk into the bathroom, and I'm knocking on the door like this. Oi, Habibi. Habibi, hurry up. Lina poi poi, circle time. Hurry up. And I can hear giggling inside the bathroom, and I can hear those little ones pulling on the toilet paper. And more giggling. I finally pound on the door. Boom! Habibi. The lock clicks open, the door slides open a little bit like this, and I push it all the way open. No one is in the bathroom. But what I didn't know is one of the other female kumu were standing right behind me. So when she saw the bathroom was empty, screams bloody murder. Sometimes the Sonatrol alarm company would call and say, your parent-teacher meeting is supposed to finish 7 o'clock. It's almost midnight. We can still hear people having a meeting inside your classroom. There's nobody there. Alarm's on, nobody's in that room. Well, we can hear furniture moving around. We can hear people talking. The next morning, we go to the same schoolroom, open the door, turn off the alarm. In the middle of the carpet, huge pile of red dirt. Impossible, because the building is locked. And who has enough time to pile red dirt in the middle of the carpet? But we didn't realize that there was construction going on Punch Bowl, and that they actually dug up remains, human remains. And these remains were upset that they were being disrespected, and the ones who were suffering for it was our little school. Behind the playground is this big shower tree. And in front of the trunk is a headstone. And there's a picture of a Hawaiian boy, and his name is Peter Gregory Nahola. And he died when he was 9 years old, way back in 1911. We found out that Peter's family no longer around. But every Christmas, all the old Hawaiian ladies at Kauai Church would always go to Peter's grave and put presents and candy and little Christmas trees. And the security guard would always help them. He'd carry all the stuff. And one night, the security guard told all the old Hawaiian ladies, listen, tonight is my last night. I got a job with the government. Tomorrow night, the other security guard is coming about 10 o'clock. So just tell him who you are. It should be okay. The next night, Hawaiian ladies decorating Peter's grave. The new security guard comes. They go up to him. They say aloha. They tell him what he's doing. And he says to them, you old stupid ladies, get out of here right now. They said, what do you mean? We just told you we're decorating the graves of all the kids who died when they were young, and today they have no family. I don't care, stupid Hawaiian ladies. Get out of here now before I kick you. And he actually kicked the president. The president lifted off the ground, spun like this, hit one of the old Hawaiian ladies in the chest. And now they're walking off all mad, swearing at him in Hawaiian. That same security guard comes back his second round, 3 o'clock in the morning. No presents on Peter's grave. And he says to himself, stupid Hawaiian ladies, I showed them. And he said he went to turn around like this. And when he turned around, he said this little Hawaiian boy stopped him. And the little Hawaiian boy looked at him and said, why? Why, mister? Why did you do that? And the security guard said, when the little Hawaiian boy told him that, this was his reply. What you mean, why? And then he went to turn around and go the other way. And when he turned around to go the other way, he said, same Hawaiian boy right behind him, stopping him like this, asking him why. He realized this boy was the ghost of the one who's buried at that headstone. The picture was the same. The security guard said, 17 years in the military, I've been in war, I am not afraid of anyone. But that moment, I was scared because something I couldn't grab, something I couldn't hurt. The security guard said he ran through the graveyard, screaming. And he says, I know they're small headstones, but it felt like little hands grabbing my ankles, trying to pull me down. He was stumbling, he was falling. By the time he got to the gate on the punch bowl end of the cemetery, he was on the ground, knees up to his chest and just crying, please, please leave me alone, leave me alone. His flashlight on top of him, he looks up, it's a police officer who says, what happened to you? The security guard gets up like this and says, oh, nothing, I just fall down. Fall down? Your clothes all tore up, look, you bleeding into your shoes, what happened? Nothing. Anyway, see these people across the street at this elder hostel. They said they heard kids screaming in the cemetery. You seen any kids? No. He said, you know what? You're bleeding really badly. I better call the ambulance. A short time later, the security guard is sitting in the ambulance, and he tells the police officer what he did earlier to those old Hawaiian women, calling them stupid and chasing them away. And the police officer said to the security guard, you're the stupid one. You never go to a Hawaiian church and make the Hawaiian ladies mad because they can put a curse on you. But even worse, you don't go to a Hawaiian graveyard and desecrate the graves of all the keiki. That's even worse. The security guard said, you're not going to believe me. But the reason I ran through the graveyard is because after I realized that boy was a ghost, this black tornado started chasing me. And there were voices inside this tornado screaming at me, why, why, why? Did you know? After that, the old Hawaiian ladies at the church told me, when they went back to Peter's grave to put candy and Christmas presents and Christmas tree, they found this big present with a card on it that said, so you never have to ask why again, from Melvin. And Melvin is the name of that security guard who was a troublemaker first, but now, every Christmas, Melvin is the one who's helping the old Hawaiian ladies decorate the graves of all the children. How are you doing on time? A friend of mine owned a tour company, and he passed away about 2012. And he opened his tour company way back in the early 70s. And he said there was nowhere else he could afford to have his office but in Kaka. And he said Kaka wasn't how it is today. He said there were a lot of small shanty houses, a lot of different people still living there, a mom and pop store. And he said that park now at Kaka where that Children's Discovery Center is, that was a junkyard. Nobody went there at night because it was horrible smelling, but that's sort of where you went to go surf. He said Kaka was different. He said, but for some reason, the tourists would come to his office in the middle of Kaka, get into the van, and the first place he would take them to is Kapena Falls, up in Nu'uanu at the Honolulu Cemetery. And he said every day they'd park there, he would walk out to the falls and make sure everything was safe. Then he'd come back and get them, and then they'd all go. Kapena or Alekoke is the name of the falls that has been there since ancient times. And so one day, my old friend Steve took his people there, left them in a vehicle, went out to the falls, and he noticed a little Hawaiian girl sitting at the edge of the pond. And she had a bamboo fishing pole, and she had the suji wire. And she's sitting there, and she's dressed in this beautiful white dress. And he said the girl was about 9 years old, I think. But she's sitting there with her fishing pole, and she's crying. And he walked up to her, he says, oh, honey, what are you crying for? And the Hawaiian girl says, I can't catch any fish. Oh, well, what kind of fish are you looking for? And the little Hawaiian girl said, I'm fishing for moi, but I can't get any. He said, Bebe, there's no moi fish in this pond. She said, there is, because I already caught two. And he said, that's when he noticed, as the girl is sitting here like this, the man laying down next to her. And it looked like the man was sleeping. His shirt was open, he had jeans on and slippers. His hand was across his chest like this, and his other hand like that. He said, did your dad try to help you? Well, he said, maybe you're using the wrong bait. What are you using for bait? And he said, the little 9-year-old girl stood up like this, grabbed the fishing pole like this, grabbed the suji wire, pulled it out of the water at the pond, and held it up to him. And Steve said, on the hook were two human eyeballs. And when he looked down at the man sleeping next to the girl, his eyes were gone. No eyes. He said that little 9-year-old girl dropped the pole, and as she dove into the pond, she reached back like this, grabbed that full adult man by the back of his collar, and dragged him into the pond with her. Steve said he was still shocked, didn't know how to react, and he's standing there like this, and he says, across the pond, the little 9-year-old girl comes out of the water like this, and she starts swimming toward him like this. As the girl was getting closer, Steve said suddenly from behind him he heard, hey! Oh, it was the people on the tour waiting in the van. Where have you been? It's been almost an hour. You're supposed to come back and get us. Oh, I'm sorry. No swimming in the pond today. We'll go to Waikiki. Everybody get in the van. He said after that day, way back in 1977, anytime he had to go in that direction, he always went like. He would never go up Nu'uanu, never go up the Pali. He couldn't bring himself to pass Kapena Falls. And he asked me, what was that all about? And I said, in the falls is what they call a mo'olahine. And this mo'olahine can take the guise of any sort of female creature it wants, even a little 9-year-old girl. But it's always after men of a particular type. When it takes the man, it's really taking his soul. In 1997, on the 6 o'clock news, 3 boys cut out from Kawananakoa Intermediate. The 3 of them lived in this old area of Kaka, and they were on the news. They said all 4 of them jumped into the pond, only 3 came up. Their 4th friend never surfaced. On the news, they said they dove down again and again looking for their friend. They couldn't find him. They said the last time the 3 of them dove down again looking for their friend, they felt his hand. And the 3 of them grabbed him by the arm like this, and they swam him up. And as soon as they got to the surface, they said something grabbed the friend, yanked him right down. And this is on the 6 o'clock news. All the rescue crew came, dove through the pond, couldn't find the body. 3 hours later, the body floats to the surface. And what do they find on the ankles? Fingertip bruise marks. Something holding the young boy's body under the water, and his lips swollen over black, like something was literally trying to suck the life out of him. They were asked on the news, these 3 boys, so after school, you and your friend, you guys went to Kapena Falls? And they said, no, we cut out from school in the middle of the day. The reporter said, oh, where do you boys live? Kaka'ako. The house used to be where the UFC gym now is. That's where those boys lived. Any questions before I go on to the last story? No questions? Are you sure?
You said street walker, or what type of walker is that? And you have to
Night marchers.
and you have to be face down and naked. What happens if you don't do that?
They'll kill you.
What what are they? Are they zombies? Are they ghosts? Are they...
Oh, night marchers are the ghosts of Hawaiian warriors. And basically in life, they did the same thing.
And they're angry at...
They're not angry at anybody.
But they just need to...
They're protecting a high-ranking chief from commoners. And so normally in life, their job was to get the commoners out of the way. But if they didn't, because if the sun cast a high-ranking chief's shadow on the commoner's body, they'd have to kill them. You should come on the Waikiki Night Marchers tour. There's a whole... All right, are you ready for the last story?
Yeah.
Oh, where do you guys live, by the way?
We live in Niu Valley.
Niu Valley?
Yeah.
Aren't there night marchers in Niu Valley?
I hope not.
I think so. Or there's burial caves back there.
I'm ready to go down and be naked.
That's what they all say. Are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. At the state capitol, there was a senator who worked there. And when the Senate is in session, it's crazy because it goes on all night. And so when she was new at her job at the state capitol, she said sometimes she would have to sleep overnight because it was so busy. And she said one night she put down the futon and she's lying on it like this. And she opens her eyes and she says underneath her desk on the other side, she can see military boots. And she says, my father was in Vietnam, so I know what jump boots look like. That's what they were. And she said she sat up like this, and on the other side of her desk was a security guard. But the security guard was wearing a uniform that they don't wear anymore. And she knew it was a ghost. And she said to the ghost of the security guard, listen, I'm fine. You don't have to come in here and protect me. She says, you're actually scaring me. Please go away. And she said the security guard turned around like this and walked out of her office. But she said only his top half turned around and left. His bottom half was still there. She said whenever she saw that ghost of the security guard, she only would see him in parts. Sometimes the torso, sometimes the legs, sometimes only the arm. But he was always there. And then she said, pretty soon my daughter was old enough to come and stay with me at work until I was done. And she said her daughter was at the private school. And a lot of times, the woman said while she's working at her desk, the daughter's over there doing homework, playing chutes and ladders, or jacks. Or she said a lot of times, she would hear her daughter talking to somebody. And the daughter would say stuff like, I can only play here, I can't go with you. My mom is going to be upset. And she remembers asking her daughter, baby, who are you talking to? The lady. What lady? The Hawaiian lady. She wants me to come to her house and play. But I told her I can't because you're going to get mad. Okay. Imaginary friend. And this went on for a while. One day they're walking up the Capitol steps at the back, going through the rotunda. And out of this door, the little daughter says, oh, mom, there's the lady. What lady? The Hawaiian lady that plays with me in your office. She's coming out of that door. And so the mom said, I just thought I'd indulge her. And I went, hi, how are you? And the daughter says, no, mom, she left already. Oh my God. The final straw was the night that they were downstairs in the copy room. And the woman says she's making copies, but periodically she looks out the door like this. The daughter's at the end of the hallway, bouncing her ball. In the copy room, she suddenly hears her daughter saying, no, give it back. I can't go with you. Give me my ball back. I have to go. And the mother looks out the door like this. The ball by itself comes bouncing down the stairs. And it stops and it rolls right between her daughter's feet. And so she grabbed her daughter and they took off. And she said, pretty soon it's 1982. It's September. It's in the middle of the day. It's hot. And that rotunda at the state capitol is crowded. It's filled with people, senators, other politicians, movie stars, Hawaiian musicians, royal societies. It's hot. And they're there for the unveiling of a statue. And she said, I'm wearing my brand new Mamo Howl Mu'u Mu'u. And it's so hot, I'm sticking to my body, filled with sweat. And after the music over and everybody makes their speeches and some politicians take too long, In the middle of that, my daughter is yanking on my mu'u going like this. Ma, 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 what? Ma, the lady right over there. What lady? The one over there, Mom. Where? Mom, over there. Where? Everybody turns around and looks at her like this. And right at that point, they had already unveiled the statue and removed the covering. The daughter's now pointing at the statue and said, over there, Mom, that lady. That's the one that used to play with me in the office, and then I would see her downstairs, and she always told me to go to her house, but I told her I couldn't. And the woman said she told her daughter, that cannot be the lady. Because what they were looking at was the statue of Queen Liliuokalani, the one that's behind Iolani Palace in between the state capitol. That can't be the lady. That is the queen, the statue of the queen. There is no way. But it turns out when Queen Liliuokalani was alive, she loved children. And she would always have them come play at the palace and swing on the vines in the banyan tree. And she always had candy somewhere that she would give to them. Queen Liliuokalani loved children so much that she paid for their schooling, sent them to school in Europe to get a better education. And so when the lady was telling the little girl that she wanted her to play at her house, she had meant the palace, where she was the queen. All right, any questions?
That's a great place to play, that particular palace.
Any questions?
Question from our online audience. What is the significance of where three boys lived at in the area that lost their friend?
Say that again.
What is the significance of where the three boys lived at in the area that lost their friend?
Those three boys were of the age where they would normally be able to see spirits. They were also from a very troubled background. And from what I was told, the house where they lived actually had a cesspool. And so mo'oahine, mo'o beings are always found near waterways, artesian wells, ponds, rivers, lakes, and what we now know today as cesspools. So it could have been a combination of both those things. Next question.
Is the Queen Emma Summer Palace haunted?
Yes, it's very haunted. It was so haunted that after Queen Emma passed away, no one after that could live in that house. Things would be thrown around, things would fall down, they would hear pounding on the wall. And not somebody standing outside the wall and pounding on it, but someone running around the house at full speed, pounding on the entire walls of the house. And there's night marchers coming through that area. And where Queen Emma's Summer Palace is very near Hanaya Kamalama. It's the name of the old temple of human sacrifice. And of course, that's where the Battle of Nu'uanu went through. So it's active in so many ways. Thanks for that question.
Another question. Are there any burial sites near Kewalo Harbor or Alamana Beach?
Alamana Beach, no, because that's landfill. But there are and have been burials found underneath the Alamana Shopping Center. Especially underneath the old Foodland, they found a burial of 3 high-ranking chiefs. And a lot of accidents were happening. Fires were starting and stopping in Long's, when it used to be upstairs by Sears, and the Disney store. And in the construction process, a lot of people were getting hurt. And so one of the site supervisors told me that one day he went to the basement underneath Foodland to get a wheelbarrow. And when he was in the basement, he looked up and he saw this Hawaiian lady dressed in the ancient clothing coming down the catwalk and walking across the basement barefoot. And the site supervisor said, lady, you cannot be here. You don't have nothing on your feet. There's nails all over the place. You got to put on a hat. Something fall down, crack you on the head. You're going to die. And he said the lady completely ignored him and walked across the basement and walked right through the wall. And so when the kahuna came and identified the 3 burials, the site supervisor said that kahuna was physically picked up by nothing and thrown across the room. It turned out the bones were high-ranking chiefs, and that the kahuna's bloodline was lower ranking than they were. And so they wouldn't talk to him. I'm sorry. Next question.
So, are there any stories regarding H3? Could you repeat that for the video audience as well?
Stories regarding H3, the Women's Hail, very sacred valley in and of itself, dedicated to Haumea. When H3 was being constructed on the Halava side, someone told me that he and another person were sitting on the side of the hill and it was their lunch break. And that at the bottom of the hill, through all that tall grass and brush and, ape, this huge pig came out, huge black pig, big tusk like this. The person who's telling me this said this person sitting next to him picked up this pipe wrench and ran down the hill after the pig. And this guy is saying, he's telling his friend, no, come back. Later on, I get the perspective of the guy who's chasing the pig. He said he's running like this through the forest, chasing the pig. And he said, as he's running like this and he looks, the valley's coming closer. And this voice tells him, whoa, what you gonna do if this pig stops? And he said, sure enough, the pig stopped. And they ended up in this huge clearing. And he thought to himself, I have nothing to worry about. I grabbed the pipe wrench. But when he looked, he grabbed the wrong wrench. The pipe wrench was supposed to be this big, but the one he picked up, that small. And so he said he prepared himself to die because the nearest tree was about 100 feet away. He wouldn't get there in time. The pig was going to kill him. And so he stood there, he said, ready for the pig to approach and kill him. He said, as the pig was coming closer, he opened his eyes like this. And he said, a Hawaiian man that must have been about 8 feet tall, big bushy hair, big beard, wearing a black feathered cape, appeared out of nowhere, went like this, scooped the pig up like a football, and just stopped like this and stared at the guy. And as he walked away and disappeared into the forest, the guy said, the feather cape, all the feathers on the back, stood up. He said, that's when I realized that was not a feathered cape. Those were hackles on the back of a pig. And he said, that man must have been Kamapua'a, the pig god. It took this guy an hour and a half to tell me this less than 1 minute story because he spent most of it crying. And this guy was a big Hawaiian brother, about 6'5", just huge, crying like a baby, recounting this story. Next, sorry.
Someone is asking, what would happen if you follow the queen?
Follow?
What would happen if you follow the queen?
The what?
If the child follows the queen to go play at the palace, what would happen?
She'd never come back.
What?
She'd never come back.
Can we address that for the video?
What would happen if the child had actually followed the queen? In that circumstance, the child had already perceived the queen's spirit. And the queen's spirit knows it's no longer alive, but it's also aware that it can't move on to a certain point, and it's also aware of us. So the queen's spirit is communicating to that girl telepathically. Because one of the things that was asked of the little girl is, if you saw the queen's spirit when she was talking to you, was her mouth moving? And the girl said, no. No movement of the mouth, which meant telepathic communication. And so a lot of the old Hawaiians say, if the child had gone, she probably would not have come back. Not alive anyway. But I believe if the queen was that gracious and that compassionate, she would not have purposely harmed the child. The child would have had an experience she'd never forget, that's for sure.
But if she doesn't return, where does she go?
Well, her body returns, but her essence goes where the essence of the queen goes. That's a whole workshop.
The night walkers, are they cursed, or could they never go to a this whole place?
The night marches are not cursed. They're like state workers. Even after they die, they keep doing their job. No offense if you work for the state. Next question.
Can you repeat where the burial grounds are for those with smallpox? Did you say they are now?
Yeah, so there's a mound behind the Kaka fire station. Actually behind that elder hostel. There's a little sectioned off part over here at, is it Rice Park or Mother Waldron Park? Over here. And then there's a mound in the corner of Queen Street and Punch Bowl of the Kwai Hao Church Cemetery. I think those are about 104 remains. In the year 2000, my boss Glenn Grant was called by a friend of his who worked at the Board of Water Supply. 1 o'clock in the morning, they went underground on the corner of Queen Street and South, beneath where the firefighter museum is. And that guy from the Board of Water Supply showed my late boss 1,100 remains directly underneath that firefighter museum. And they're all smallpox. Next question.
Have there been any hauntings in Ko'olina?
There have been hauntings even before it was Ko'olina, and there will continue to be, especially at what is now the Four Seasons.
I would say Aulani.
Aulani's fine. Aulani is perfect. There's really nothing wrong going on with Aulani. But for Four Seasons, it used to be Ihilani. We'd have to do a whole other thing before I could tell you everything. Yeah.
Any stories regarding Old St. Francis Hospital, aka St. Hospital West Block?
Yeah. So where that hospital is, Queens or St. Francis West, is in a place, a part of a territory where Kamapua'a was also able to roam. And so part of that was where he roamed. And as we know in hospitals, a lot of people who pass away tend to linger. And so there's a famous story about a woman's first night on the job, and she's talking to the new girl on the job. And she's mad because the new girl on the job looks like she's not paying attention. And so the head nurse says, "Are you even looking at me? Are you even listening to what I'm saying?" And she said, the new nurse said, "I'm sorry, but my toe hurts." "What do you mean your toe hurts?" She said, "My toe hurts really badly." And when they looked down, the nurse had no shoes on, but on her big toe was a toe tag, mainly used for corpses. And on the toe tag was written her name, the circumstances surrounding her death, and where it happened. And apparently the place where the death happened was right at the station where that nurse was. Anywhere? I'm sorry?
Is the preschool the early education center haunted?
Where's that?
Children's Center over there. Yeah.
Oh, the one in the park?
It used to be the junkyard.
I haven't heard anything yet. So that probably means it hasn't made the list. Yeah, I got to get an autograph from you later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any hikes on Oahu that we should not do or go on?
Yes, do not go on the hike up to Kaniakapupu, Kamehameha III's abandoned mansion. It's sort of in a delicate condition, but also it's a very, very active place at night.
Okay. Last question. Are there any stories about the Iolani Palace that you can share?
Stories about the Iolani Palace. There's one I can tell you. In 1997, my boss Glenn Grant was hosting a group of people on the palace grounds, and there was a psychic from Australia. And he went up to the psychic and said, "I know who you are, but if you see anything, feel anything, don't say anything. I don't want these people to freak out." And so they're standing at the coronation stand on the palace grounds, and Glenn is talking about how the security guards tell him that if you're at that coronation stand when the sun is coming up this way, you might be able to catch a glimpse of Queen Lili'uokalani's ghost having breakfast in the coronation stand. At that point, the psychic interrupts my boss and says, "I'm sorry, I promised I wasn't going to say anything. But the entire time you've been talking, that gate over there by the library, there's this very tall Hawaiian man with long white hair, long white beard. He's wearing a yellow rug around his shoulders. He's got some sort of loincloth on and some sort of weapon. And I know he's a spirit, but he's been telling me, don't bring any one of those people near this gate because I'll kill every single one of you." Do you know who that is? Well, it could have been an old guard associated with the old temple of human sacrifice that used to be there. And the yellow rug was a yellow feathered cape denoting his very, very high rank.
I think we have time for one more question.
One more.
They want to know if there are any beaches on Oahu that are haunted.
You know it as Yokohama, but it's called Keawaula. There's a lot of activity. And then people don't think this beach is haunted, but Sandy Beach at night. If you go there 4 o'clock in the morning on the night of the full moon, Mahialani, you'll probably see a beautiful Hawaiian girl swimming in the waves at Sandy Beach. And she looks like she's in trouble and she's calling you for calling for you to help her because she's possibly drowning. But the more you swim out to go get her, the further out she swims. Right, Salted Kaka Ako, thank you very much. And for all of you tuning in live, thank you. And if you haven't noticed, I did the PG-13 version of my ghost tours or ghost stories because we have these little girls over here. There will be a recording posted later on. So thank you. Good night.